for every potential scenario that could occur. One of the many factors that influence swing weight is the weight of the shaft, along with the head weight, grip weight, and length. In the following diagram, we'll see how this works. We already stated that the shaft is shorter than the club, or in this case, it's 43.19 inches long. Let's say for starters, the balance point of the shaft is in the center of the shaft. But we'll revisit shaft balance point a little bit later. A swing weight scale pivots around a point that's located 14 inches from the butt end. Get my mouse here and I'll show you here. This would be your point. The balance point of our shaft in this situation hangs over the fulcrum point by 7 3/4 inches. Therefore, the weight of the shaft adds or contributes to swing weight the same as if it were head weight. Every swing weight point is equivalent to 50 gram inches. That means with the balance point 7.75 inches past the fulcrum point, it requires 6.5 grams of shaft weight to change the swing weight by 1 point. Now the 6.5 grams only applies at this length. The weight that will be needed to increase the swing weight becomes greater the closer that it moves, or the closer the balance point moves to the fulcrum point. The chart at the bottom of this slide shows what will happen if we have a 200 gram head and a 50 gram grip with the modern 466 or 460 cc driver at 45 inches. As you can see, the 65 gram cut shaft, which started out at 69 grams, yields a swing weight of about D1. While this is not a standard, it is a common swing weight. If manufacturers were to use a super lightweight shaft instead, for instance 48 grams, you'd see a reduction of 3 swing weight points. And for the sake of argument, if the manufacturer started out with 111 gram steel or graphite shaft, then the swing weight would increase to D7 at the same length. Obviously, the club maker has options. They can alter the weight of the head, but as we said, that hasn't changed over the years and causes other headaches for manufacturers. They could change grip weight as another option to establish a certain swing weight. Now, just the easiest way to alter swing weight is through a length change. This is one of the reasons why certain manufacturers might have D2 as their standard swing weight, so they'll make their driver length 45 3/4 or 45 1/2 instead of 45 inches. Most club makers are aware that a 1/2 inch increase in length also increases the swing weight by 3 points. So as you can see, shaft weight has a definite influence on swing weight and the final length recommendation. Why is this important? Well, shaft manufacturers make raw, uncut shafts for a variety of club head manufacturers and club makers who all have different ideas on how their clubs should be made. The shaft manufacturer who produces an open source shaft, or one that you would find in a number of component catalogs like Hireko's, has to figure out what flex to build into each model. And that's a tall order, as not all manufacturers will use the same shaft to build with the same head weight and length. This is opposed to proprietary shafts, where shaft manufacturer might create a specific shaft that goes into one particular model and is only built to one standard stock length. Now this is important to understand. Since shaft manufacturers cannot dictate what length and swing weight these clubs are assembled to with their products, they have to know that the manufacturers typically build to a very narrow swing weight range. And by knowing this, the flex of the shaft can be built into the design. However, if the swing weight of the club is lower than D1, then the shaft flex becomes progressively stiffer. Conversely, The higher the swing weight of the club over D1, then the more flexible the shaft becomes. This is true for most men's clubs, while ladies' clubs are less due to their shorter length. I should also preface that statement as it's only true when we use standard 50-gram grips. But shaft weight alone is not the only consideration to the final swing weight, as it's also tied to the balance point of the shaft. Now, shaft balance point throws a monkey wrench into the length and swing weight equation. I mentioned before that the balance point of a shaft is not always located in the center of the shaft. Actually, it's rarely there, as most shafts for drivers have a balance point that is approximately 52% of the length of the shaft from the tip. Shaft balance points in drivers range anywhere from 48% from the tip to 56% of the length of the shaft. Shafts that have a balance point less than 50% are considered tip-heavy and are rare in driver shafts. Center balance is where the shaft's balance point is exactly in the middle. And lastly, if the balance point is more toward the butt or is a higher percentage than 50%, then those shafts are considered butt-heavy, or another word for it is, or term, is counterbalance shafts. An 8% range doesn't sound like a whole lot, but over our 43.19-inch cut shaft for our 45-inch driver, that actually amounts to a 3.5-inch range. And using our example before with our 200-gram head, 50-gram grip, and 45-inch length, take a look at what happens to the swing weight. The most popular weight range of shafts today for drivers is in the upper 60-gram range. Using that same head, grip, and length, you can see nearly a 5 swing weight point differential just by a balance point change. And to put that in perspective, the 5 swing weight point differential has nearly the same effect as a 35-gram shaft weight change when the balance point is located in the center of the shaft. Now that's significant. Unlike weight, which manufacturers publish a specification on, balance point is not one of them you'll ever find. So you may have no idea if the shaft is tip-heavy, center-balanced, or butt-heavy without buying it and measuring it for yourself. If you haven't paid attention lately to a lot of the name brand manufacturers' drivers who literally drive the market, the lengths are becoming progressively longer, it seems, each and every year. I call this the creeping length syndrome. Soon 45.5 or even 46 will be the new normal. If you do any club repair work and weigh some of the new drivers on the market, you'll find out they still weigh 200 grams as mentioned before, but you wondered how they were still able to make the length 45.5 or 45.75 and still get the proverbial standard D1 or D2 swing weight. Well, if you've paid attention so far today in this webinar, now you know the reason for it. Some of the shafts the manufacturers are using are intentionally counterbalanced, and this allows the use of longer length drivers without having to reduce head weight. An example of this would be all the Pepper series, the Serrano,